Welcome to a Sunny Hirsch election special. I'm your host, Avi Myers. The reason we're doing this as opposed to the regular Toronto News Magazine is because we have a lot more guests than we have shows to air, and we want to make sure that everybody gets a fair airing, and we give everybody possible the chance to appear before the public. And I would like to point out first that her opponent, the opponent of my first guest here, has been offered on numerous occasions to appear on the show to debate, my guest, and balk. She's not doing it. Her name is Jan Schakowsky. That's not my guest, which is fine. My guest, who I want to congratulate for getting the Tribune endorsement today, is a very serious candidate in the 9th District, someone who I would love to see beat Schakowsky's pants off come Election Day and be the next congressperson from the 9th District, and that is Joan McCarthy LaSonde. Joan, how you doing?
Avi, nice to see you again. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, my pleasure, and I want to thank Blair Kamen for coming with you today. And I also want to thank you for inviting me to... We had a really fabulous event with Breitbart editor Joel Pollack at Taboon.
Right. Taboon Grill.
Yeah, my favorite kosher restaurant by far. I can't begin to tell you how many Moroccan cigars I had there. And by the way, it took me about 5 minutes after I got home because they gave all of us these styrofoam doggy bags.
Right.
5 minutes in the microwave. Put it in the microwave right away. It was gone that night.
Oh, good, good.
It was absolutely...
Thank you for coming, by the way. You were a big hit.
It was my pleasure, thank you. And it was very nice of them to ask me to introduce Joan. And it was a real pleasure because not only do I like her policies, and you'll see why as the interview rolls on, but I don't like Congress people that have growing contempt for their constituents, which Jan Schakowsky has been showing more and more every year. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself, Jan, period. You used to be a nice lady, and maybe you are outside of politics, but I have a hard trouble believing that, you're the same person you used to be. It's just not the same thing anymore. You care zilch about the consumer, and you wouldn't know what a loaf of bread cost if it hit you in the head with a brick. So, and that's putting it nice. And I'm not suggesting anybody do that. I should have. I didn't want to use that phrase. People get so touchy about these things these days. But
you have to be politically correct.
No, you don't. But there's better ways to phrase than what I just said. I'm not a fan of hers at all. I'm really not. She's been a big disappointment. So why would you do better?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Our district deserves a representative who reflects the values of the district. In the 9th District, we are socially moderate and we are fiscally conservative, or at least fiscally responsible. And right now, we do not have a representative who reflects our values. My opponent has been part of the political ruling class for over a quarter of a century. She has been in government for over 25 years. And I absolutely agree with you as far as I find it insulting. I'm out all the time meeting constituents, going door to door, and people say, no one's ever come to my house before. I know you've invited her on the show. We've invited her numerous places, and she never comes. So I'm going to offer a fresh voice, new energy to the district. We've got to get our economy growing again, back to the 3–4% levels that we're used to. We've been limping along at 1–1.5%. And you know what? It's time for change. With all due respect to Mrs. Schakowsky, anything that she wanted to accomplish over the last 25 years, she already should have accomplished.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And, it's interesting to point out because when you talk about the limp economy, there has never been another 8-year period in which growth never exceeded 2%. Never. It's not a healthy situation because you need 2% just to replenish what we're losing.
Absolutely.
It's not like you're gaining at 2%, you're treading water.
Right. And our district is very diverse. 30% of the 9th district is in the city, so it's part of Chicago. And then we go into Evanston, Wilmette, Winnetka, and we go out west to Glenview, Des Plaines, Morton Grove, Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect. Our district right now has an 8.7% unemployment rate.
Wow.
Which is almost twice the national average. This is right here in the 9th, 8.7%. People are underemployed, people have unemployed issues, and we've just got to get the economy working again.
No, there's no question about it. And the fact of the matter is, there's people that don't even count anymore because they've been out of work so long.
Yes.
They're not
Yes.
counted in government statistics after
Yes.
a certain period of time. So
another big point of differentiation between my opponent and I is in education and in school choice. So I walk door to door. I have walked in this community, and I have met a lot of moms and dads in the Jewish community, and one of the things that they are upset about is there's no school choice. They live here in Chicago, they have high property taxes, and yet they feel that the school district that their child should be going to is not really up to par. So not only are they spending all this money on real estate taxes, but then they're turning around and they have private school tuition. You know, this is expensive, $15,000, $16,000 a year. I believe in school choice, and I believe in vouchers, so that if you choose to send your child to a school that you think is a better fit for your child, then that money should follow that child. And I'm all for limited government and free markets. And school choice is really a reflection of free markets. A little healthy competition is good.
no, absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, what people don't realize, let's say it's a $5,000 voucher, just as an example, to pull a number out. In the Chicago public schools, it costs something like $16,000 or $17,000 per child to educate them. So if you're helping the parent along with $5,000 or whatever the amount is, and the kid pulls the kid out of public school, that's already an $11,000 to $12,000 savings for the public school, and the child then can go to the private school and pay part of that tuition for a better education. I went to public school for 1 year, and as much as I hated going to private schools, I really started appreciating some of the stuff I was learning. Because I went from a kid that was struggling in school, and when I went to public school, it was like, how did I get in the honors class? I don't belong there.
You're a smart guy, Avi.
Doesn't mean I always showed it.
Well, this is another point of differentiation between my opponent and I. So I believe in limited government and returning the power back to the people. Right now, my opponent supports the federal Department of Education, which is in Washington, D.C. It employs over 4,500 bureaucrats, and it currently spends $70 billion, that's B, billion dollars, on education. Now, we have done the math. If you take that money and you divide it, it equates to $168 million coming back to our district, coming back to the 9th. I think that, you know, the parents and the school districts and the local government should be in charge of helping to educate these children. You know, I'm a mom. I have children. I have a foster child from DCFS.
And as a matter of fact, you know, the Tribune made note of that and talked about how you understand how poorly the Illinois Department of Child and Family Services is, and how inflexible and you know, it's funny. I know other people with foster children, and I think it, by and large, it shows a really wonderful, warm heart for people that want to help take care of kids that otherwise wouldn't be taken proper care of. And the government makes you jump through so many hoops, and they don't even know what they're doing.
Right. I know why there is a shortage of foster parents. I have seen it firsthand. And I have seen firsthand how the government has failed The children, are poor and are most vulnerable. We have a foster daughter who has been with us for over 3 years, and because of big bureaucracy and government red tape, she stayed in a horrible situation longer than she needed to. And this, too, is a point of differentiation between my opponent and I. So when I'm out in the district, and I know firsthand that there are children who are homeless that live right here. We have veterans who are homeless that live right here in our district. I know because I've gone and spoken with them. They live under the viaducts. In fact, I was at the Evanston train station this morning, Davis Street, and it broke my heart. There was a man who had slept on the train station bench all night long. So there's, I believe that charity starts at home and that we have to help our own first. My opponent has requested and is supporting 10 times the number of Syrian refugees who are coming in. So the current administration, President Obama, they have agreed to let 10,000 Syrian refugees in. I'm all for helping people. That's the way that I was raised. We help those who are less fortunate. My opponent wants to bring 100,000, 10 times as many Syrian refugees into the country. And that's nice, but first we've got to help our own. We have people right here in the district who need our help. And that is who I'm going to be fighting for.
You've also got a problem in vetting these people because if you just let in 100,000 people from there will be terrorists in the mix.
Yes.
And how do you go through that many people? There's other places in the world, too, that unfortunately Democratic administrations have ignored. Mm-hmm. When Darfur was going up in flames, the Clintons wouldn't lift a finger for them. Mm-hmm. It was only Israel, and Israel is definitely a topic in this election, and it should be pointed out that Jan Schakowsky left the Congressional Hall when Prime Minister Netanyahu gave his speech. Mm-hmm. But Israel actually did more to take care of the people from Darfur. And I even have an Ethiopian following among people, but, through Sean Tenner, who does, who's very much anti-slavery guy. And the South Sudanese boys and the South Sudanese Community Foundation come on here, and they praise Israel for what they did. And the Clintons did nothing, which should be pointed out. But anyway, we're talking about you. Now, in terms of Israel, okay, would you walk out on Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Never. I would never do that. I had a forum recently with Congressman Bob Dole and Brad Schneider, and then my opponent, Mrs. Schakowsky, and myself. It was in a synagogue up in the Northfield, Northbrook area. I believe it was BJBE
Beth
synagogue.
Jacob, Beth Elohim.
Yes, yes, BJBE. And the first question was, what do you see as the biggest threat to Israel? And I said that the biggest threat to Israel is a nuclear Iran. And my opponent supported the nuclear Iran deal, which basically lifted $100 billion worth of sanctions that Iran could now have access to. And what did they do with that money? They funneled it to terrorism, they funneled it to Hezbollah, and they started developing ballistic missiles which are pointed right at Israel. So I would absolutely oppose the Iran nuclear deal. It was a bad deal. My opponent supported it. And she also, not only did she not show up for Prime Minister Netanyahu's address before Congress, but she led the boycott. She whipped the other votes. She got other people to not show up. And, I just believe that it's one thing to agree to disagree, but you have to at least show up for the meeting. She should have showed up. It was disrespectful. It was disrespectful to Israel. It was disrespectful to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I can guarantee you, as your next Congresswoman, when Prime Minister Netanyahu comes to speak before Congress, I will at least show up to hear what he has to say.
Oh, very good. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, in case you're... now, Jewish Chicago hasn't gone to press yet at this point, but we are within the week. Jewish Chicago is endorsing Joan McCarthy LaSonde, and I myself on the Northtown News Magazine show endorsed her, and this is Sonny's show, so I can't endorse. Sonny doesn't get into endorsements on the air, but I have a sneaking suspicion how he's going to vote in this particular case.
Wonderful.
So, well,
happy to have you on the team.
My pleasure all the way. And listen, I think you're more than worthy of support. I think it's a crime the way things have been going in the 9th District. And, another thing, too, other congressmen occasionally bring a project into the area to help benefit the area, help infrastructure, provide jobs, all the rest of it. She doesn't care about any of that. No. She doesn't do any of that at all.
Not anymore. I have heard people call her DC Jan. They say, you're the one that's running against DC Jan. She's never around. She's either in DC or in her, I think she has a home in Indiana, a weekend home.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's not in the district, or maybe it's Michigan. And I hear this firsthand from constituents. They say, well, thank God you're at the train station. Thank God we have someone who can represent us, because we have not had anyone in the past. And I think part of it is she's been in government for over 25 years. It's time for change.
Definitely time for change. And you know what? There are a handful of people that could be productive over that time, but it's been a long time since she's been productive for anyone other than herself and her husband for a very long time. And it's unfortunate, but that happens to be the case. So if people want to volunteer and go to work for you?
We're 4 weeks out, and this is the first time in over 6 years that Jan Schakowsky's now hiring field staff. She's paying people to go around and hang up door hangers. We're, shoestring budget. It's kind of David and Goliath. She has 10 times as much money as I do. But I would encourage you to check out our website, which is joanforcongress.com. Come get involved. Walk your neighborhood with me. You can send me an email. Everything's right there on the website. Tell me where you live. I want to hear what issues are most important to my constituents. I'm not just here to talk about my platitudes and what I think is best for the neighborhood. I was born and raised in this neighborhood in the 9th District. My husband and I are raising our children in the 9th District, and we're now raising other people's children in the 9th District, our foster children. So yeah, I'm here. I am the community, and I'm going to bring change to a much-needed district.
And it desperately needs it. It really does. Oh, and by the way, I'd like to put a lawn sign I like a lawn sign of yours for my lawn.
Wonderful. I will bring one over. I'm not sure if there's one in the car.
I meant to, I meant to ask you in advance, but with all the Jewish holidays and having to write Jewish Chicago, and doing the TV show and all the rest of it, it's. I didn't forget. I just don't have time. I need a 30-hour day, and that, God didn't make things that way. It'd be nice if he gave me a little bit of that, but I got to deal with the 24, and I occasionally have to sleep too. Occasionally, not too often. And but anyway, I want to thank you very much, Joan McCarthy LaSonde. I want to urge all of you. What is your number on the ballot?
So first, here's the other thing that I'll just say quickly.
Oh, please.
I'll just say quickly. I believe in voting on issues. Vote person.
We can go to 20 minutes.
And not party. There is so much hatred out there. When I am out walking and I'm telling my story and I'm asking people what issues are most important to them, and I knock on their door, I usually get one question, and that is, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? And I say, well, I'm actually very moderate. I'm a populist. I'm a centrist. I am on the Republican ticket. And I get two answers. And the first one is, you just got my vote, and they slam the door on me. And the second one is, you just lost my vote, and they slam the door on me. So I'm not going to be part of the hatred and the bipartisanship out there. I encourage people, do your research. I'm doing my research. I will not be voting straight ticket. There's some interesting judges and so forth, other people up and down the ballot. I will not be part of this hatred and just vote straight ticket. So I encourage you, do your research, check out our website, send me an email, let me know what's important to you.
Very well said. Joan McCarthy LaSonde, what is your punch number?
Oh, that's how we got started.
Right.
So, well, there's no real punch number. It's the president, and then it is Senate, and then it is Congress. So I guess I would be third. And I encourage you, go down ballot. Go all the way down. This is a democracy. Vote both sides. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Joan McCarthy LaSonde, thank you so much. And thank you, Blair Kamen, for bringing her here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.